Hey, this is Dee Corchin, certified health coach, and this is lesson one of the Living a Longer, Healthier Life companion guide. As a critical part of our program, Take Shape for Life, we offer three things. We've got a great weight loss plan, which we're going to talk about a little bit in this lesson and in future lessons, because most of us need to reach a healthy weight. So that's a great starting place for us. But in and of itself, a weight loss plan is just a weight loss plan. And it means nothing if we do not incorporate education on habits of health, how to incorporate this, make this a lifestyle change that we can sustain for the long term. And then we blend that with the support system that includes a personal health coach like myself. Now, I know that we are all busy and a lot of us don't have time. We want to pick up the books, we want to look at them, but it can seem kind of dry, kind of boring. We don't really get how this applies to us or why it makes a difference in the long run, especially if we're on the weight loss program and we're losing weight. We feel like we're in control. But Dr. Anderson has a really great way of describing about weight loss and when we use weight loss alone. And I don't want to misinterpret it. So I want to read it exactly how he talks about getting healthy. And he says it's really about changing our focus. In our instant gratification society, we tend to think of weight loss as a destination. In fact, it really is just the first step. Optimal health is a journey, and it's based on lifestyle change. A reorientation from merely hoping to lose weight, all the while we're succumbing to daily stress and making poor choices, shifting that to creating health by allowing our minds and our bodies to work together. That's very different than focusing on weight loss alone. So we're going to start our journey, and it really is a journey. And that is lesson one talks about, it corresponds to chapters 1 and 2 in Dr. Anderson's book. And it really is about our changing world. You know, something has brought you to this point that you've decided you want to make a change in your life. You want to make a change in your health. And in order to move forward, we kind of need to understand where we are now, what brought us to this point, and then what do we want you need to put in place to start to make that transformation happen and make it a reality for us. And Dr. Anderson, he really does a great job of really outlining, where we are. It's not really our fault. A lot of what's going on with the health of our individual bodies and the health of our country is the way nature intended. And you put what nature intended with what's going on in the food industry and the overabundance of stuff that we have available to us that we didn't in the past, we've kind of created this perfect storm of unhealthiness. And so he talks about in the beginning of their book, really just a general understanding about our past. And, way back when, 10,000 years ago, we lived in a feast or famine society. We were hunters and gatherers, and it was up to us to go hunt our food. Either we were on foot or we were in a boat, and we were hunting a deer, or we were out fishing, or we were doing something for survival, gathering berries, all that sort of thing. And when we had a catch, we ate it, we feasted on it, and we filled up on it. And that's why our bodies were designed to fuel, to fill up, because we didn't know where that next meal was going to come from. So we would fill to capacity, and then our bodies would use that extra to store as energy, so that while we were out on the hunt again, physically expending energy to acquire our food, that we had the energy stored as fat to use it. And back in those times, our energy expended and our energy intake were basically equal. I mean, there were no weight issue problems. There was no obesity. There wasn't high blood pressure or type 2 diabetes. We were probably fighting to get to a lean body mass index of below 25. Even reaching that point. So it's different. So here's how our bodies are designed to function. So we're designed to eat to capacity and then store. And then what we've done is we've now have this environment of convenience in our lifestyle. It's totally different. We have an abundance of calories available to us in an instant. You think about if you just drive through, McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or Taco Bell, whatever your fast food of choice is, you drive through. I mean, you're expending virtually no energy driving. You put your finger on the window to put it down, and then you order, it could be up to 1,000, 1,800 calories comes in the window, and we can eat it while we're driving. So we're in this environment where we're consuming way more than we're expending. And therefore we would, that fat storage is on overdrive, and therefore creating the weight problem and the obesity problem that we have. So there's a big imbalance. The other thing that's naturally happening, and it's called sarcopenia. And what this means is that after the age of 20, our bodies naturally are losing about 1 pound of muscle per year. So what that means, I mean, 1 pound of muscle is about 50 to 70 calories in a day that it takes to maintain and sustain that pound of muscle. But if year after year we're losing that pound of muscle, and we're not doing some significant resistance training, or we don't have a real physical labor job to help, maintain and sustain our muscle mass, that means by the age of 40, we've lost 1,400 calories of energy expenditure in a day. So there really is truth to that statement when people says, wow, it seems like my metabolism so slowed down. Well, it absolutely has, because we've lost muscle mass. So it is really recommended that if we're not, if you're not on a weight resistance program or doing physical labor, that we start moving in that direction. Because if not, we're really in an environment of storing fat and accumulating fat. The other thing that we're up against today is our food supply, and it's called nutritional pollution. Believe it or not, over 90% of the foods that we consume are processed foods. And the definition of processed food means that it fits into one or more of these 4 categories. One being high glycemic, high sugar levels, high fructose corn syrup. It's called many names now, but basically it is an abundance in our food. And it's there because it's addicting and it tastes good. And that's why we want to keep eating it. The other thing is that processed foods are high in fat. They're also high in salt. And they're also high in chemicals. So none of this is good for us. It's nutritional pollution, what we're putting in our bodies. The first and priority, and a lot of things that something that a lot of people don't think about, is the nature of high glycemic foods. And these are the ones that are high sugar. What happens is that it drives up and it turns on our insulin pump. When our blood sugar goes up, our body creates insulin, and that's a natural reaction to it. It creates insulin to lower that blood sugar down. Well, what's happening in today's society is that we're fueling our body with so many high glycemic foods that our blood sugar is just staying very, very high, and our insulin pump is working in overdrive, trying to manage it. And what that is just a recipe for metabolic syndrome. And metabolic syndrome, high insulin levels and metabolic syndrome that causes fat storage. And it also, our body's just not functioning the way it's intended. And then metabolic syndrome leads to the things like diabetes. So that's why there's such a direct correlation with people being overweight and obese and diabetes being right behind it. Diabetes is a very dangerous disease. We're given medication for it, but even with medication, our body continues to deteriorate. The disease gets worse and worse, requiring more and more and more medication, and significant risk involved with that, including heart disease, loss of vision, and loss of limbs. So it's something that, is totally avoidable if we can, and reversible by changing our lifestyle. So the bottom line is, okay, so here's where, we saw where we came from, we saw where we are, and we basically live in what's called an obesogenic world. And so it's up to us as individuals to make a choice not to do that anymore, and that we want to take a turn and move away from mainstream and what the rest of the world is doing, and really take control of our own health, and take that active role and decide that we're going to create health in our life, and that we're not going to continue on this same path. It's a very slippery slope. We've kind of reached this stage in our society where we might have some of the risk factors for being sick, but we're not sick yet. And we call this being in a non-sick state. So it's often a comfort zone for people, because I've had a lot of people even say to me, well, yeah, I'm overweight, but I'm really healthy. And what they mean by that is that they don't have the high blood pressure, or they don't have diabetes or high cholesterol. But the reality is, it just means they don't have that yet. They're on the path to that. We're either on one of 2 paths. We're on the path to health, or we're on the path to disease. So some of the, being non-sick means that you're simply surviving. You're not thriving. You're just kind of getting by in the current state that you are. And some of the symptoms of that, of being in a non-sick state, are if you're overweight, if you're not sleeping well, if you're fatigued, if you're tired a lot, if you're weak or flabby, if you're stressed out, or if you're on medications. I recently had a client once, I asked him if he had any weight-related diseases, like high blood pressure, et cetera, and he said no. And then we got to this client profile, and I asked the question, what kind of medications do you take? And he said, well, I take high blood pressure medication. So in his mind, because he took high blood pressure medication, he didn't have high blood pressure. When the reality is he has high blood pressure. The medication is just masking the symptoms of that and bringing it down. We want to be able to do that naturally and not have that. So the real first step is to reach a healthy weight. We want to reach a healthy weight, and by doing that and changing our eating habits, we're probably going to eliminate or prevent the need for medications for the kinds of things that I talked about. We then want to move into adopting the habits of health, and that is all of what we're going to be covering through these lessons. Adopting the healthy habits of health, which is going to include things like healthy eating habits, the habits of motion, having a good support system, getting adequate sleep, managing and keeping inflammation at bay, taking supplements where needed, and that sort of thing. And then from there, we want to progress into what's called optimal health. And optimal health looks different for everybody, but it's basically achieving what's possible for you and what you want for yourself, to live the quality life that you want for yourself. So the first thing is we kind of need to take a reality check of where we are and look at our own activities and our own daily life and see, are we on the path to health, or are we on the path to disease? And the workbook, if you pull out the workbook, it really is a great opportunity to start paying attention to this. And basically, you give yourself a point if you're doing something healthy, and you take a point away if it's unhealthy. So for example, if we're eating breakfast every morning, that is a healthy activity, assuming we're eating the right things, and we'll talk about that at another time. But you get a point for that, because healthy people eat breakfast on a regular basis, and there's a lot of science why that's good for us. If we're eating 3 square meals a day, that's actually considered an unhealthy eating habit, where our bodies are actually functioned and designed to function more efficiently if we eat every 2 to 3 hours versus 3 large meals a day. If we use the stairs whenever possible, we get a point for that. If the breakfast we talked about only included coffee or simply just orange juice, we take a point away. If we're parking away from the store and we're walking, or we're taking the stairs instead of the elevator, those are good habits of health of motion. We get a point for that. So this is in pages 6 and 7 of the workbook, and I highly encourage you. The real way to know how to move forward is to know exactly where we are. And this was very eye-opening for me, and I know that you're going to learn from it as well. So we need to think about what kind of healthy habits, once we do this exercise, what kind of healthy habits do we intend to adopt as we move towards our own optimal health? So as you go through this list of, okay, well, gosh, I'm eating, 3 meals a day, or for myself, before Take Shape for Life, I sometimes ate just 2 meals a day. So that was a big shift for me to switch to eating 6 times a day, every 2 to 3 hours. So that might be a shift for you. Every day we can start doing incremental things that will move us in the path of our direction. But in exchange for that, there's probably some unhealthy behaviors that we need to start walking away from. And so we create new habits while trying to walk away and not do the old habits anymore, and create new habits to replace them. So it's simply not just enough for us to make a decision to do this. We really need a blueprint. We need a path to success. Most of us, why we've been unsuccessful at our own attempts to losing weight or getting healthy, are number one, because we only focused on losing weight. We were focusing on willpower, and most of us in that kind of environment, we never even get to our what we consider success of our healthy weight. With Take Shape for Life and the program we offer, we give you the structure, we give you the blueprint for success, and then we also incorporate a lot of community support and structure, because that's what, as humans, that's what we need for long-term sustainable success. So what you're getting through this lesson is one of those things, okay, that we do. You're not out there on your own trying to do this for yourself. We're going to talk about behavioral habits. It's not just the physical things we're doing, but there's also behavioral things that we do. In our future lessons, we're going to talk about things like triggers and patterns, recognizing what sorts of situations put us at risk for making poor choices when it comes to our eating or skipping exercise or habits of health. And then how do we make decisions around that? And we're going to give you some tools to help you with it. Our focus with all of this is to help you recognize that getting healthy is not about willpower. It's purely about choice. And when you're empowered to realize you can make any choice you want, but when you start wanting to make the choices in line with your goal, because that's really what's going to bring you happiness and bring you the joy and bring you the physical benefits of being healthy, allowing you to do the activities that you like, to be around with the loved ones that you want and live a quality life, that's when your life begins to change. So join us for lesson 2. That's coming soon, but I hope this was helpful to you. And always feel free to reach out if I can support you in any way. Thanks and have a great day.